feelings by focusing on you. And then so what happens is that the addict starts to feel worse, okay? And so they go out and drink again, and it goes back and forth like this for years and years and years, all this tension between people. And the tension can get so big finally between people that this connection that you have can just break. And that's when people will usually come into my office and they'd go, I feel nothing. I'm not even connected to this person anymore, you know? I love people sitting in the lobby fighting. When I saw a couple, you know, bitch, jerk, screaming at each other and doing that, I said, yeah, they're still connected, right? There's still some passion there, because the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. Don't even care. Okay, I mean, and the break can be so big sometimes that you just can't repair that ever again. That just happens sometimes. Because, you know, everybody in relationships has a, it's not a very clinical term, but everybody has a tolerance level. Everybody does. Where you can get to this point where you finally get it together and you start saying, I'm serious, I'm in recovery and I'm gonna be whatever, and they go, hey, that's great. You know, that's really great, you know, Chris, but you know what, I don't care if you become the Pope, I'm done. You know, you could become a saint, poster boy for recovery, Chris, I'm happy for you, but I'm done. You know, I had some people say that to me. They were like, no, don't care what you do. You know, one brother like that. He's like, no, don't care what you do. One day you're gonna drink again, just like Dad. Always gonna be an asshole. I'm done, right? And I was like, oh, my sponsor used to tell me, well, Chris, you just broke that. It's too broken. It's not about you, it's about the other person, but you can cause that much damage where that actually starts to happen, okay? So the way that you heal in recovery is that you start learning how, the way that you clean out your tank is that you learn how to open your mouth and start expressing your feelings. And we're gonna like go into what are natural and unnatural feelings in one of the lectures coming up, okay? And about how to actually start expressing your natural feelings instead of all these repressed feelings here. Because when people are both acting out from this, pushing down their feelings, there's a lot of chaos usually around that, okay? But if you can learn how to like express your feelings, set boundaries with yourself and other people, here's what happens. If your tank gets real clean, okay, and you get real clean, and then you learn how to start setting boundaries, in other words, you don't let these people push your buttons anymore. You learn how to like set limits and boundaries with people, because if you're doing everything to take care of yourself, you have the right to say you have to take care of yourself too, okay? So when they try to tank you, it backs right up into them. So if you're getting better and they're feeling worse, or they're feeling more of their own stuff already, who are they gonna blame? Yeah, they're gonna blame you, right? They're gonna go, well, you know what? You're changing, but obviously it's not the right change. Right, so then they'll start making you jump through more, I call it, it's a phase where you'll see them start making you jump through more hoops. Well, that's not enough. That's not enough, that's not right, okay? And then they'll ask you to do more and more and more. And, you know, they do this by taking your inventory. Okay, I was really getting better and I was doing all right, you know, and everything like that. And then, you know, I remember one day my other brother, who's no longer here, but he said to me, he goes, why don't you go ahead and get drunk, because you're more of an asshole now than when you were drinking. And I was doing a good program at the time. I was really working. And I said, wow. I said, you know, I'm doing my work. God's got my back. What are you doing for your recovery? That will piss them off. Because the only thing you can change in a relationship is your own bottom line, right? Because if you get better and heal and grow, the people in your life have three choices. They can look at themselves, work their own programs and grow with you. They can split, or what's the only other choice they have, do you know?
Take you down.
Knock you down. Get you down here. Got to get you back down on the same level. All right? So they have to do it. And it's not like they wake up in the morning and go, gee, how can I chap Greg's ass today? Okay, how can I piss him off? It's a subconscious thing where they just keep the focus on you. Because in their mind, their thinking is, if you just change, I would be happy. They all say that addicts we get a higher power that becomes our like alcohol or drugs, right? Codependent people, we're their higher power. We're their drug. Okay, we never have to drink or use again. They have it harder because they have to live with us all the time. It's kind of like a sex addict or a food addict has to learn how to use sex responsibly or food responsibly, right? Because you can't stop eating. And if you're in a relationship, you got to negotiate sex for the rest of your life in that relationship. Okay? If you're in a relationship with a codependent, they've got to like stop making you responsible for their happiness. Okay? My mother-in-law keeps trying to get me to rescue, my brother-in-law, who just got out of prison again for violating probation for, drinking on probation and using coke on probation and assaulting his wife again. Okay? And she says, what can we do to get him to get in healthy recovery, Chris? And like, how can we get him to go to meetings and, this and that? And I said, are you going to Al-Anon? Have you ever gone to Al-Anon? I've known you for 22 years, and have you ever gone to Al-Anon meeting once? Al-Anon's where codependent people go to work their 12-step program. Who's your sponsor? I have a sponsor. I go to Al-Anon and AA. I have a sponsor in both programs. I sponsor people in both programs because I worked all 12 steps. So who's your sponsor in Al-Anon? She goes, well, and I said, then you're a hypocrite, Jenny. You're a hypocrite. You're saying that if your son just got better, you could be happy? How dare you do that to your son? That is not your son's job. They call that emotional incest in clinical terms. It's called emotional incest, when you make your children responsible for your feelings or your well-being or your happiness today. I said, that's really damaging. And I said, do you know why he won't get better? Because he knows in his mind that the way you look at the world is this. You have to change and you have to be who I want you to be in order to be happy. But he already knows how to disappoint you with alcohol and drugs. And he knows if you don't change that, the way that you look at the world, that if he fixes the alcohol and drugs, it'll just be something else that you'll find. So he goes, screw that. Why give this up? I already know how to disappoint you this way. I'm not going to work harder to try to fix something else. You'll just find something else for me to fix. So I said, what's his motivation? Yeah, she didn't say thanks for the enlightenment, Chris. Appreciate that for your growth. Okay. The 77-year-old woman threw her Bible at me. How crazy is that? She got so pissed off, she threw her Bible at me. Right? She goes, you ass. Like that. And all I said was, wow, Jenny, that's pretty big. Who's that about? That's so not about me. There must be some truth there. But whenever I ask the family members of people in treatment, what are you doing for your recovery? How are you healing? Are you doing the same thing you're asking them to do? And they all go, well, I'm just waiting for them. And I go, yeah, well, that's addicted thinking too. We call that there and then thinking. When I get there, then everything's going to be okay. That's how addicts think too. You're just exactly like them. That pisses them off, right? Oh, and I go, well, you can get healthy no matter what the addict does in your life. My dad drank up until 2 years ago. And my dad's a violent, crazy, mean, unpredictable drunk. And I've had a great 27 years of recovery in spite of him. Okay, so you can get healthy no matter what the crazy people in your life do. All right, it doesn't mean that just because you get better, they will change. They will change. So one of the guys that I sponsored before, Eric, called me up the other day and said that, Chris, you were right. I'm changing, and my wife doesn't want to change, and she found somebody sicker to be with. I thought I was pretty sick. I came home and found her in bed with this other sick, crazy person. And I'm like, oh, I'm really sorry. And he goes, in a million years, I never thought that she would be the one to do that. So yeah, she doesn't want to do the work. So all you have to know is your bottom line. right? Are you doing your recovery? Are you still working your program? Yeah, I'm doing sponsor people, Chris. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Well, she doesn't want to go. She doesn't want to do that. She doesn't want to change. So she's got to find somebody else sicker to be there, right? Okay. So now here's the thing. If it's just the two of you in a relationship, it's easier to have a break, right? Like if you have to like separate from somebody. If you have kids involved, the kids get affected too, because what happens is that the kids start getting tanked by the parents here. Like if you have like kids down here, okay? And then like so do the animals, if you have animals of any kind, okay? If you got animals, they start getting tanked too, right? So like my cats, and like I used to have a dog and he died last year, but you know, like he always knew when I was in a good mood. Dad, how are you? Come in, right? You know, it was all whatever. If I came in pissed off, he's like, oh, hey, you know what? He could feel it, right? He'd go, hey, Dad, I'll be with you. I'll come back later when you're in a better mood, okay? I mean, animals are like just intuitive that way. If I was really sad or upset, he would just come over and put his head right here, right? He'd just look up, hey, Dad, you need some love? I'm here for you, okay? Because dogs are just like that. Cats aren't like that, right? Cats kind of look at you like, oh, feed me, okay, whatever. Although they feel things too, I'm not saying that, okay? But, so even the animals can get tanked as well in a family like this. And the kids start to take on, there's a woman named Claudia Black who did all this research on families, and she said that kids can start to take on different characteristics or different roles in the family. And she said that once an overwhelmed family starts getting labeled as one of these roles, the roles don't change very much. They're pretty rigid. Sometimes they change a little bit, but they tend to stay pretty rigid a lot of times in an overwhelmed family. Like the addict, codependent's codependent. And the kids can start to take on different roles. Like the first one here is what they call the family hero. And that's the kid that usually achieves pretty well in the family, and is the function of all these roles is to take the attention away from what the real problem is, which is addiction and codependency. Okay, so the family hero is the source of pride for the family, and kind of like take us, well, it can't be that bad because look, okay? And I was that in my family growing up. I went to college when I was 12, just because I was smart enough. It was my ticket out, right? And I could take a test, and my parents taught at university, and I was like, I had a master's degree by the time I was like 17 or 18, and so like I was that thing, well, we can't be that screwed up because look at Chris, okay? Even though, I started getting high and drinking at 10. All right, I was just a high-functioning little addict, okay, wounded addict, okay. My brother was the scapegoat. He was always being brought home by the police, always in juvie, always, getting locked up. Got his girlfriend pregnant when he was 15, again at 16. I mean, he was always that source of, like, he was the rebel, the bad seed. I mean, the black sheep of the family is what they used to call that, right? Okay. The mascot was my other brother. He was the comic relief. Always telling jokes, cracking jokes. He was the way of like a little tension relief in the family. And then I have another one called the Lost Child. That was my sister. Lost Childs are like potheads, okay? They just kind of tune out. They zone out. They get adopted by other families. They don't hang around the family that much, okay? And they don't get that paid attention to. So we had 4 kids in my family. We all took like one of these on. It was wild, okay? So, the thing is that children are the last people to get healthy in an overwhelmed family. They are the last people to get healthy in an overwhelmed family. Because they sit around and wait to see what the grown-ups are going to do. Okay, they just go, you know what, I'm not doing anything till I know there's at least one safe person here that I can turn to. Like when parents go through divorce, their number one thing is, there's always one parent that comes up to me and says, he's crazy, or she's nuts. I'm really worried when they're together, I'm alone with my kid and this, whatever. I said, you don't have to worry about that so much if you're healthy and you're sane. All kids, if they have one person in their life, it's not always their parent either. If they have one person in their life when they're young that is healthy and sane and encourages them to be the best that they can be, and checks up with them, and when the kid gets overwhelmed, can say to the kid, how are you feeling and what do you need? Because those are the 2 questions that wounded kids never get asked, ever. if they're in an overwhelmed, addicted family, because remember, like, we don't trust, we don't feel, we don't talk about it.